The situation is worsened by a labour dispute among the electrical department and officials. Raw sewage has been flowing through the streets for an extended period, posing significant health and environmental risks. Urgent intervention is needed to have the lives and the economic in Palabora.
And finally, the truce between Israel and Hamas has entered its fifth day after Qatari mediators announced a 48-hour extension to allow further exchanges of hostages and prisoners between the two sides. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says it's been given names of 10 hostages abducted by Hamas in October to be freed today. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, welcomed the news of the extension.
I hope very much that this pause brings back sense to people and that they realize that violence and military solutions are not going to achieve the much needed political solution that actually leads to a peaceful future for both Israelis and Palestinians. There's no way out. We don't need more conflict. If you want the violence to end, the occupation must end.
Recapping our top story, the NGO Unite Behind says it has taken Parliament to court over its recommendations against the former Minister of Transport, Dipuo Peters, and her role in corruption at PRASA. For SAFM News, I am Luyanda Maume. Headlines at 10:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Did you hear that? That's the sound of lights being switched off to reduce the impact of load shedding. Eskom is encouraging you to use less electricity at all times by switching off electrical appliances and lights that are not in use. Cell phone chargers, TVs, and decoders still use electricity if they're not switched off at the socket. You see, if we all switch off what is not in use, our combined effort could help reduce the impact of load shedding. Let's work together by switching off to reduce load shedding.
Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
# Rugby Drama Galore. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to the second hour of The Talking Point. We're leading the conversation right here on SAFM. Coming up this hour, it is a Tuesday, so we're talking finance with Brian Hirsch. But because it is the last Tuesday of the month, we, of course, are going to be dealing only with questions today. Brian is standing by and he'll be taking your questions. We'll take those on the WhatsApp voice note line, also on the studio line. But there are questions that have been put through, those mostly submitted during the month that perhaps we may not have had the opportunity to get to. Before we do that, however, lots of your WhatsApp voice notes from the first hour of the show, which is the open line. We'll take some of those voice notes and then get into our conversation with Brian.
Morning, Cathy. Morning, SAFM listeners. This is Olkona from Bloemfontein. I just want to know now, what was the resolution of the trucks that are stopped at Richards Bay going to the port? Our ports and our Minister of Enterprise, I think they're just doing this thing deliberately. If you look at Mr. Gordhan, he doesn't have any sense of agency. He's so relaxed. I think this cabinet should be changed, really. These old people must go to pension, especially Mr. Gordhan. I think everything is sabotaging this country, that guy. He's so quiet when he goes. He's so casual with everything. He must go. Now he must go. It's time for him to go.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and your team, Jumbo Africa. Happy Disability Month, if this month is not recognized in South Africa. Sis Cathy, I want to talk about Eskom. We are experiencing high stages now. It's stage 12, the way I check, because of the switch electricity for 4 hours, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes, 4 hours, 30 minutes every day. They think it's going too far. The Minister of Electricity doesn't have a plan for us. Please, Sis Cathy, can you invite Dr. Solomon of Gift of the Givers? They are doing amazing job for our neighboring country. I think they will do something for us in South Africa. We are crying. There is a team that I know here in Matlosana, they qualify artisan of electricity, they are unemployment. I think if they can meet with Dr. Solomon, they can do something to save us. They think it's going too far. It's going too far. Enough is enough. We have to do something, this kid. Please invite Dr. Solomon. It's Percy in Matlosana.
Good morning, Cathy. The difference with the old government and the current government is that the old government was providing services according to their number of people staying there. Currently, you are just given service according to the budget, of which if the place is populated, the service is going to be poor. If they build a storage, the storage can cater for those people. That's the difference. You are both right, but it is sad because our government is neglecting us.
Good morning, Cathy. Yeah, Cathy. You see, one thing for sure is that what Ninja was saying, obviously, he was told by some other guys somewhere who used to be sitting with him when they're drinking beer there by his house. Because surely he's just new in this country. And what makes matters worse is that our government, the ANC government, has messed up by itself by giving tenders to their members, to their alliance guys, to their comrades and all these kind of things, and chowing money in this fashion. That is why they've opened up a can of worms for everyone, and including themselves. Now we are suffering because of them.
Good morning, Cathy, hearers of the station. You see, Umntwana wakaPhindangene has done it a lot, and his doings are inexpressible. But it is no longer exist. They must not doubt and hesitate the leader, uBaba uVelenkosini Hlabisa, uBulawayo. They got a leader. They must not hesitate him, because it will be a disaster tomorrow. They got a new leader, then they not using now Umntwana waPhindangene. It will be like they were bypassing uBaba Hlabisa. They must not hesitate him. Thusi from Inanda. Bye.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
Good morning, dearest Brian. Brian Hirsch, good morning.
Good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good. Yeah.
I miss you in studio. I miss you in studio, Brian.
Yeah, my foot is on the mend, but I just thought I'm now back in a boot and a crutch, but I just thought maybe to walk all the way from the car park into the studio was a bit far, but I definitely will be back. I'm really recovered well. I'm doing everything like normal, but I'll be back next week. You shall see my face, and I shall see your lovely face next Tuesday.
But don't put yourself under too much pressure, okay? Even if you're not, if it's not up to scratch next week, it's fine. We'll still see you the last week of Talking Finance. Pleasure.
Thanks, Mommy. I really appreciate those
Pleasure,
words.
son.
Yeah.
You must listen to your parents.
I will, Mom. Thanks.
You're terrible. All right. So let's get through the questions from this month, Brian, and we'll kick it off with the latest on this two-pot retirement system. So many people are always interested in this issue, Brian, and there, of course, are occasional updates. But I think what everybody always wants to know is when can they actually start tapping into some of those funds?
Okay, well, this is about people who can actually take money out of their retirement funds. Initially, Treasury wanted to delay the process until the 1st of March 2025. However, Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance has decided to actually implement it on the 1st of March 2024. So it will be coming in. But let me also make this comment. You know, it's not all going to happen on the 1st of March. It is work in progress. Because let me explain to you what has to happen. Every pension fund has to have a new rule registered, and the rule that has to be registered is allowing individuals to withdraw from the fund prior to retirement. Normally, you can only withdraw from a retirement fund on retirement, on retrenchment, or withdrawal. So now they've got to register this new rule. This rule now needs to be registered with the Pensions Board, FSB, and I'm not satisfied or convinced that they will have this all in place by the 1st of March 2024. So although many people will make application to borrow money, withdraw from their based on the two-pot system, which means of the contribution to retirement savings, part will be going to a pot which allows you to withdraw. The good news is they've raised the level from 25,000 Rand to 30,000, and even though you can actually implement your request on the 1st of March, I'm saying to a lot of individuals, there may be delays because the rule isn't registered, and until the rule is registered, the pension fund cannot do anything in terms of its current rules.
Brian, do you think enough has been done to actually educate people about what this is going to mean and what considerations at least they should make before making these applications to withdraw?
No, I don't need any education because individuals are drawing 30,000, which is the maximum you can draw, because it depends. It's based on 10% of that savings pot. So if you don't have 300,000 Rand in your savings pot, let's say you only got 100,000, you'll only be able to draw 10,000. No, not enough has been done to educate individuals about what the impact is, because remember, retirement monies is long-term money, and therefore, if you take money, if a 40-year-old takes out 30,000 now, what would that impact be at age 65, 25 years later, which I can tell you would be something in the order of somewhere in the order between 400 and 480,000 loss at retirement. But individuals are saying, look, it's all fair and well to tell us about retirement. We don't have money now to pay the bills of life. So so on that score, I understand the need, but I don't think enough has been done to educate. And also people need to realize that tax on to
all right, Brian, we're having a bit of difficulty with this connection to you. I'm going to ask that our producers call you back. And of course, I'll also take your calls for Brian. It is the last Tuesday of the month, so we're dealing with your questions for him. As soon as we're done with this latest update on the two-pot retirement system, we'll get into some of your questions.
Don't miss out on the SAFM Playwriting Competition. To enter, visit safm.co.za. From the menu icon, select Competitions. Click on the SAFM Drama Playwriting Competition. Read the T's and C's of the competition. Check out the competition's Q&A. Fill in the entry form by clicking the link provided. Email your script to drama@safm.co.za. For further information, email drama@safm.co.za. Entries close on the 22nd of January 2024. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
It's been a long journey.
It's been a beautiful I'd say 20 years.
Yeah.
This is excluding years of study and lecturing.
Yeah.
Full of ups and downs, full of drama, full of front page headlining for the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
we've actually survived the industry. Someone said, you work in a very ruthless, a very horrible industry. No, it's not. The industry is amazing.
Yeah.
It's the people.
David Lally, fashion designer and entrepreneur.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
All right, we continue the conversation with Brian Hirsch. So we've been talking about the two-part retirement system. So, Brian, you were just speaking on the issue of education for members that you believe there just hasn't been enough of.
Cathy, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let me make the one comment is, people, when you make a contribution to a retirement fund, you get a tax deduction on that contribution. Now, if you're going to withdraw from your fund, you are going to be taxed. And I understand that it is taxation at marginal rates. So it will be added to your taxable income for that year, and you will pay tax. So in certain instances, be as high as 40%. That's if somebody, but anyone even earning 30,000 obviously pay of that around about 25 to 27% in tax. So you need to understand the impact of what you're doing in the decision in terms of ultimate retirement, and you need to also understand that you're not going to get the full amount. There's going to be tax payable.
All right, thanks for that, Brian. Let me go to David in Cape Town. David, good morning.
Good morning to you, Cathy.
Yes.
Yeah, I've spoken about my investment shares, man, that I've got with Grand Parade. That is since the year 2000. And I only received, in December, some dividend after a couple of years now. And the office was in Cape Town. And then they gave me a note that they moved to Johannesburg. And when I found Johannesburg, they put you through from one to another. And they don't even respond to me. They've got my phone number. I've got certificates for my shares. And now I actually want to sell my shares. But nobody seems to answer me. The minute I get through to them, then my phone needs off because then my airtime flies up. One day I spoke just to two people with 30 rand of airtime, and it just went off after that because it's hang on for this one, hang on for that one. Is there anything people can do for me, please?
All right, David, what did you say the name of the company is?
Grand Parade Investment, in Johannesburg.
Grand Parade Investment.
Yes.
All right, and how long did you have investments with them?
From the year 2000.
Okay. Brian, are you able to come in here?
Company. Cathy?
Yes.
I suggest we take David's phone number down because my radio line is now closed because I'm going away next week. So may I suggest we just take David's number down, and I will call David back. I won't give my number out today. I'll reopen my line on the 12th of January, but take David's number down, and I will phone David off air.
All right, David, you heard that? All right. So Brian then will get in touch directly with David to see what it is that he can do. So Brian, an interesting one around medical aids. Not surprising though, given what is happening in the world currently. Many people wanted to know, are you covered on medical aid if you go to a country that is considered at war? What are the protections that you can rely on?
Well, let's talk about two different components. One is life insurance, disability, and dreaded disease, and the other is medical aid. Well, I certainly don't know, but I was absolutely shocked to hear that anyone traveling to Israel who considers, the medical aids most medical aids have a 90-day period that if you travel overseas, your medical aid will cover normal ailments and any illnesses occurring in that country during that. Discover as a general scheme for cover in war-torn difficulties of care, evacuation, and risk, and therefore anyone traveling to Israel in December visiting family will not be covered under the Discovery medical aid. They will have to consider a travel policy. The problem with the travel policy is you also need to understand that there are exclusions on pre-existing conditions. So if you have a condition that's pre-existing, if you had high blood pressure, cholesterol, if you've had any problem, diabetes or anything like that, you will be excluded from your travel policy, and you're also excluded from Discovery's medical aid. I was quite shocked. There are other countries on that list, just to let you know. In Russia, before that, Sudan, Afghanistan. So now when we talk about...
Listen, you know what I'm going to do? I think that we're just going to have to try and see if we can't get you up on a different link. I think that, the reason why that connection to you isn't great is because of what we also have with load shedding. It sounds like the network in your area could well be down, and I want us to be able to hear everything that you are saying in the meantime as you answer all of these questions. Of course, I will take your questions for Brian Hirsch on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial for the studio line, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes I'll take on 0614 104 107. And those will all be direct questions for Brian. We'll continue with Brian in a moment. And of course, I also want to give you the opportunity to ask whatever questions you may have on the agenda.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM. Prime time all day long. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Have the Hawks been able to establish if there is any prima facie case, though, against the president?
Yeah, from our side, we will not be determining the issue of there being a prima facie case or otherwise. That is the duty of the National Prosecuting Authority. So it is not in the jurisdiction of the police to decide as to whether here we have got a prima facie case or not.
Thank you so much for your time. Lieutenant General Godfrey Libia there, the national head of the Hawks.
Beyond the Headline on SAFM, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Thank you, Cathy. In your headlines, Impala Platinum Holdings says all the 86 employees were involved in a mine accident at their operations in Rustenburg yesterday have been accounted for. 11 of them died, while 75 others sustained injuries. The NGO Unite Behind says it has taken Parliament to court over its recommendations against former Minister of Transport Dipuo Peters and her role in corruption at PRASA. Parliament's Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interest has recommended that Peters be suspended for one term after she was found guilty of breaching Parliament's ethics code. And Uganda's finance ministry has announced plans to borrow $150 million loan from the China's Exim Bank to develop the country's internet infrastructure. The move highlights Uganda's growing reliance on China for funding after the World Bank, one of its largest funders, suspended funding in August due to Uganda's adoption of a contentious anti-homosexuality law. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11. Cathy has your SAFM market update.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 68 to the dollar, 23 rand 56 to the pound, and 20 rand 44 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended mixed, the JSE mainly down in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe also flat this hour. Gold is trading at $2,012, platinum $923 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $80.25 a barrel.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
We continue the conversation with Brian Hirsch. Brian, I hope it's going to be a third time lucky. Good morning again.
Good morning once again. I was just finishing off that point about a discovery in the medical aid. So I'm suggesting anyone traveling to any of these countries, check with your medical aid to see what cover you've got. When it comes to life insurance, dreaded disease, disability, I've had confirmation from both Discovery and Liberty Life. And I would imagine you could also check with your life cover that you are covered, that there's no problem with cover. It says, I'll read what Discovery said to me. I'm happy to confirm that at present we won't exclude Israel as a covered territory. Policyholders can rest assured they will be covered by Discovery Life. Similar question answered from Liberty Life, but check with your insurers. Amazingly enough, Liberty have said they will not offer new cover to persons traveling to Israel. So if you're applying for a policy with Liberty Life, understand that if you intend to return to any of these countries that I mentioned a moment ago, you need to check that you will be covered whilst you're in that territory. So these are quite onerous conditions imposed by insurance companies, both on medical aid and maybe on future cover. Check with your insurers.
All right. Brian, I've got one of our listeners here who says he's having an issue with his pension. Let's just listen to what he's saying on the WhatsApp voice note line.
Morning, Cathy. I would like Mr. Brian Hayes to help me on, you remember 1992 when President Mandela was to be released. Some of us black people, we lost our jobs. And then funny enough, the company now says to me that I'm not in their system. While I've got all my documents and some of the staff who works there, they remember me. But they say they can't help me with my pension fund. I'm not in their list. I don't understand. I need help, please, Cathy. I'm Charles from Soweto.
Oh, okay. Again, that's a WhatsApp call, is it not?
Yes, it is, Brian.
Do we have that individual's phone number?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay, please pass that number on to me, and I will give him a call to see what the story is.
Okay, let me go to Sebokeng. Opa, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you, sister?
I'm well, thank you, Opa. Go for it.
Yeah, Cathy, I called about 2 weeks back. It's about my daughter. My daughter has phoned a branch line. It's almost 2 months now. But a week before, I think, towards the end of the month of last month, there was a lady who called from a Brian's company, but she didn't come back to my daughter again. So my daughter has got issues with SARS. So that's why the branch line. So maybe because me, I always listen to SAFM. So I told my daughter to phone that line. Brian will come to her, and maybe we will help her. Not maybe, but I know Brian will help her. Yeah.
So Opa, you say that Opa, you said that somebody from Brian's office did call.
Yeah, there was a lady. Yeah, there was a lady who called called my daughter, but she didn't come back. She says to him. He said to her that she will come back to her about in a week's time, but it's more than 2 weeks now. She didn't come back to her.
Okay, all right.
My daughter got an issue she's got an issues with SARS. They take him from this one to that other post. So I know because I know Brian. That's why I told my daughter, no, just give them that 011 number.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's hear from Brian sort of what may have been the issue. So Brian, Opa, his daughter, got in touch with your office, and somebody from your office did call her back, but they haven't come back to her since then. And it looks like all of this has happened in the last month or so.
You know, I'm sorry to say, I lost connection while Opa was giving us his update. Again, please, if we again can just take Opa's number down, and I will call Opa and find out what the situation is.
All right, no problem. This is an interesting one, Brian. I don't know how many people actually are going to get Christmas bonuses this year, but those that are fortunate enough to have a bonus, the question, of course, is what should they do with their bonuses? What advice would you have?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to deal with it today because I'm going to deal with it in a full program next Tuesday, what you should do with your bonus. Whether you should save it, whether you should spend it, whether you should invest it. Those are your three options. There may be a hybrid between all three, but I'm going to be dealing with in a lot more detail with your Christmas bonus next Tuesday. That will be the 4th of December's program. What should you do with your Christmas bonus?
The other question that we have is around government retail bonds and whether or not those are safe investment options.
Yeah, look, very simply, banks don't bail out governments. Governments bail out banks. So I have no doubt in my mind, you know, I have a simple philosophy. What would I have done for my late mom, my son, myself? I would be quite comfortable to invest in government retail bonds. The rates of return are exceptionally good. 2, 3, and 5 years. You can get income from those government bonds. I think the last time I looked, the government retail bond on the 5-year government retail bond was paying around about 11%. It changes on the 1st of every month, so you need to have a look if you're going into government retail bonds. I have no problem with them. They're safe. I think 2 years was 9.25%, 3 years was 9.5%, and we'll relook at those rates in. But I think it's a safe investment, and it's a good alternative to fixed deposit, because people who may be in fixed deposits at the moment, we're hoping that rates in America come down and rates in South Africa start coming down in 2024. So even though you may be getting a rate now that's not bad, those rates will probably be coming down. Bear in mind, any interest-bearing income that you get is taxable. Although if you're over 65, the first 34,500 is tax-free, and if you're under 65, it's 22,800. You don't pay tax on that amount. You only start paying tax thereafter, and it gets added to your other taxable income. So you sometimes are paying tax at a higher rate than what you may be if you're got a pension or you're earning a salary.
Morning, Cathy and Brian. I just want to find out in terms of the withdrawal. I've got a retirement annuity and I've got a provident fund, but I wouldn't want to touch my provident fund. Are we also going to be allowed to withdraw from our retirement annuities? If I can have clarity on that, please. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, I understand you will be able to draw from your retirement annuities. Again, the companies have to have a program in place. At the moment, if you're under 55, you cannot withdraw from your retirement fund unless it's under 15,000 Rand, or if you're disabled. If you're over 55, you can then retire from your retirement fund. But it is included, and it will again be under the two-pot system. So you will be able to make a withdrawal. And again, depending on the size of your retirement annuity, because remember, it's going to be leveled on the two-pot system. Two-thirds will go into the retirement section, 1/3 will go into the pot that you'll be able to retire from.
All right. Okay, that's interesting, Brian. I didn't realize that retirement annuities would also be covered as part of the two-pot system.
Absolutely. All retirement funds. I'm not sure exactly. Remember, all these rules have to be amended, so I'm not quite sure. That's much easier to do because retirement annuities can be amended across the board. But with pension or provident funds, every pension or provident fund has to have its rule changed. It's not a blanket rule change. So retirement annuities are a lot easier to implement the rule change as compared to an individual fund. So someone who's working for Company A or Company B or Company C, those three companies have to have their rules changed. And I can tell you with government departments now December and then the first part of January not being around, they've got to get all these rules implemented, signed off by the 28th, is the 29th. Next year is the 29th of February. It is a leap year, yes, 29th of February. And so the members are going to be waiting till the 1st of March and then implementing. So after that date, it definitely will be work in progress.
All right. Deborah, you're out in Kimberley. Good morning.
Morning, how are you, Kevin?
I'm well, thank you, Deborah.
I'm very good. I just want to ask Mr. Hirsch that remember South Africa was on the grey list. So now we do have another incident again about the rand manipulation. Doesn't it maybe contribute, if this whole thing was about to be concluded about the grey list, doesn't it actually even affect whatever the process has been? Because I'm a forex trader. And it actually happens that I was actually talking to my mentor who is actually foreign. So there are actually some passive effects about South Africa being on the grey list. So I just wanted to find out if now this rand manipulation, doesn't it contribute to South Africa have more like 5 years again or 10 years more on the grey list?
No, I don't think this accusation about manipulation of the banks will have anything to do with the grey list. The grey list is about corruption and money laundering. Corruption in terms of corruption at government level, corruption in the country, money laundering, and trusts. The way trusts, a lot of people hide money in their trusts. And those are three of the big components that need to be fixed up. Now, that government have mentioned that they're getting very close to ticking all the boxes that are required by getting us off the grey list, which we went on to in February. But those two components, corruption and money laundering, are the two big components globally concerning the Financial Action Task Force. So all these other issues are, yes, they make the news, but I don't think that'll have any impact on the grey list. It's not having any impact on the currency in the short term. We are seeing some volatility in the currency. We saw the currency down at 18.11, and it's now back at around about the 18.60 mark. By the way, the good news for our listeners is with the oil price being at 80 and the rand being at 18.64, you can expect early December petrol reductions. Petrol price.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ash.
All right, Deborah, thanks for the question. Brian, SA retail bonds versus tax-free savings, which one is the better one?
Well, tax-free savings account is a structure where you can actually, if you buy a government retail bond in a tax-free structure, you won't pay tax on the interest. So that's what and up to 36,000 Rand a year, it's not a large amount to put into government bonds, 36,000. But whatever you put into that 36,000, in other words, you put 36,000 in a tax-free structure, that's the vehicle you're using. Now you've got to invest the money. Do I invest in government retail bonds? Do I invest in fixed deposit? Do I invest in equities? Do I invest in unit trusts? What do I invest in? And anything you invest in under tax-free savings will be tax-free up to 36,000 Rand per year. It's now been going for about 4 years. So anyone that's now has been making those contributions for the last 4 years, it started at 30, then 33, then 36, could probably have somewhere in the order of about 140, 145,000 plus what they've earned, and that will continue up to a maximum of 500,000 per taxpayer in your lifetime.
I've got another question here from Brian, who's in Protea Glen, who wants to know, with the rand manipulation issue, as investors, are we going to get back our few cents that we lost on equities portfolios when the markets were either up or down on projection?
No, you're not getting anything. All that's going to happen, if it's proved that there was rand manipulation, those banks will be fined heavily by the FICA, and they will have to pay it. It won't have any impact. It may have some impact on the price of a share of a bank. That may happen, but certainly there's going to be no recovery for anyone. At the moment, the market has moved up. The international markets have moved up. Things certainly have been a lot better in the month of November, following a poor October, and hopefully into 2024 and 2025, we will see better equity markets as inflation falls both in the USA and internationally, and we should see interest rates coming down, and interest rates coming down are good for equities.
Edwin Govender, you're in Gqeberha. Good morning.
Edwin Goldman. Hello, Casey. How are you?
I'm all right, Edwin.
Lekker. I would like to speak to Brian Connection with a surplus money, please.
He's on the line.
I'm right here.
Hello, Brian. How are you? Edwin Goldman here. Nice having you. God reaches blessings.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Nice to have you on the program.
Lekker. God bless. I've been working for Wallet Batteries. I'm retired now. I'm 73 years old. I did work for Wallet Batteries from 1973 to 1999. I took the package deal. And I was on Eltron pension and at Alexander Forbes. I was so unhappy with them. I think it was 2001, something like that. They sent me surplus money, 1,125 rand. I was earning at that point in time 5,500 rand. And I phoned them and they say the money is right. And now they say they can't have my personal things. I phoned Wallet Batteries, and Wallet Batteries has given to them all my information. I've got a reference. Are you still there?
I'm listening.
I've got a reference number. I phoned them so many times, and I told them I should have been more happier if they didn't send me nothing. But to send me that peanuts, I think Alexander Forbes is busy with something very wrong there. Could you help me, please?
Yeah, let me say, Alexander Forbes definitely not busy. There's no funny goings on Alexander Forbes. They're a fine company. But, let's understand, 1972, the surplus the calculation, I think, was up to the 1980s. And there may not have been a surplus in the fund. Not every fund had large surpluses. It depended on the type of fund you're in. There are two types of pension funds. There's one which is called defined benefit. The other one is called defined contribution. Defined contribution defines what you pay and what the company pays. Those type of funds, there would be no surplus. Defined benefit is what you pay and then what the actuaries give to the company, Willards, to pay on your behalf. Look, I have a very good contact at Alexander Forbes. We had a problem with Alexander. We had a query about Alexander Forbes about 4 weeks ago. I got in touch with them. They came back to me within a day. They now are in touch with the particular individual who's got the problem. Again, if you take your number, we'll take your number down in the studio, and I will give you a call. I'll get the details. I'll pass this on to the young lady at Alexander Forbes, and I can assure you they take this very, very seriously. But I can also assure you there's no funny goings on. The surplus is not about, it has no impact. It's the surplus in the fund, and the fund is a separate entity to anything that goes on in a business. So Alexander Forbes certainly are not playing games, but I'll pass it on and I'll investigate on your behalf. We'll take your number down, Edwin, and I'll get back to you.
Yes, and I've been working there from 1973 to 1999. 80 hours, still working there. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, it depends what type of fund you're in. One needs to have a look
I
at
was
it. And then,
in the Eltron pension fund. That was
yeah,
a
but I
number
don't know whether it's
one.
yeah, we don't know if that's a defined benefit or defined contribution. And also remember the fact that the fact that you only got 1,000 rand there may not have been a big pot, and that pot would have been distributed amongst all the members because it was a requirement that every fund did a surplus calculation. So we'll look into it for you, and I'll certainly you'll get to the right person who will then give you information.
Thank you very much. God richest blessing. You're doing a good job. We treasure you, my friend. Ne? God richest blessing.
Thanks, Edwin. You take care. Take care.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
All right, Edwin, thanks for the call. Brian, what I'm going to do is take a quick break. Clement, Jessica, I'm back with you, and of course some of the WhatsApp voice notes that have been sent through for Brian.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market, more than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million rand in luxury travel experiences for two. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My Bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app, at your nearest Absa branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Dressing up is a winning mentality.
If you look good, you do good.
You feel good too.
Big ups to Polo South Africa
for making the SABC Sport team look good during the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Class and style on another level.
Rolez-vous.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. And Brian is still on the line. Let me go to Ermelo. Jessica, good morning.
Good morning. I would just like to find out, regarding the pension fund. My father worked for the mines, and it was, he had a pension fund under Chamberlain of Mines. However, when he had retired, he hadn't received his pension fund. And upon inquiring, we were kept on being directed to, different offices. I just would like to find out, because last year sometime a company by the name of Cold Case contacted me and saying that there was some of his pension fund that was due to him. And if, if he's deceased and if he's still married and we have got all the documents to prove it, we could then my mom could benefit from the pension fund. After that, we have heard nothing from them. And I have gone, on the internet, and I have seen that there are a number of pensioners that have not received their pension fund. So I would just like to find out, how do I go about finding out and accessing the pension fund?
May I ask you a question? Your dad is now deceased.
That's correct.
And is your mom not receiving the pension or portion of the pension that your dad was receiving on his death?
No, nothing. He's received nothing, regarding his pension fund. All he was given was kind of a package because the mine was closing where he was working. So he was given like a package, a retrenchment package. And that was all the money that he had received. He hadn't received anything from his pension fund.
So after he retired, he got a package and not money from a pension fund. Look,
that's correct.
Dealing with the Chamber of Mines, dealing with government pension funds is an absolute nightmare. A lot easier to deal with companies like Alexander Forbes and Willards and Eltron. Those are companies one can deal with, can get to the right people. Again, I'm happy to take your number down and we'll take it in the studio. The reason I'm asking everyone to give for the studio to take it, because my radio line's now closed for the year, and if you called me, I wouldn't be picking up those mails. We'll take your number down. You'll give me details. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do anything this year, but let me have a look at it. Give us your number, and I'll see if there's any way I can help and anyone I can speak to. Because, a lot easier for me to find someone than probably you to find someone.
Trying to get hold of an office or a person, and I'm unable to. It's just closed doors.
You'll give me a number. I must tell you, it's a shame that individuals have such a run around from the different pensions organisations. It's like call centres. It's an absolute nightmare phoning a call centre, a nightmare phoning blind to an organisation and getting an answer to get to the right person. But using our SAFM radio line and using SAFM as a bit of a big stick, I often have a little bit more success getting to the right person. It doesn't mean I always get the right answer, but often I can get to the right person.
No, we would appreciate that.
Okay.
All right, Jessica, thanks for calling in and all the best, eh?
Thanks a lot, Ben.
Sure.
Bye.
Jessica out in Ermelo. Clement, you in Sandton, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Clement.
Yes. My question is similar. My father also used to work for the government. He passed away last year. He never went to go fetch his pension fund at the government, right? Now, it was just my concern because I hear the topic sounds so serious that's on the radio. It sounds very interesting for me. And what can we do as his children? How can we sort it out to find out if there was a provident fund or pension fund in the government for his kids?
Well, was your father working for government?
Yes, he was working for government. He was working for Bereguana Hospital.
Okay, and had he retired?
No. What happened was, all that I know, he basically absconded. And since then, this was in the early, I think, 90s. Somewhere around there, but he was working 25 years already then in the government.
And did he abscond from his employment?
Yes, that's what I know. I was still a very small child at that stage, but because I've listened to this topic now on the radio, everybody was talking regarding his provident, his pension fund that was in the government. Why don't he go fetch it where he used to work? He was just stayed away.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. My only problem is, I'm not going to kid you. Whilst I have success with corporate South Africa, I have no success whatsoever with government. I can't get hold of anyone. When I get hold of someone, they promise to come back to me, and they don't. All I can say to you is, you need to go to and contact the government pension fund. GEMS, it's called Government Employee Fund. You may have to go and see them, find out where they are, and go and see them and put your case to them. But if your father never received money after 25 years of service, there is definitely money in the Government Employee Pension Fund that that your late father is entitled to. But I'm not going to promise you anything, because I've never had any success in getting any query answered in government pension fund. They take no notice when I tell them this is a query on SAFM. They just it's just like ignored. It like goes into file 13 and never answered. Good luck to you, and I hope someone is listening to this program and can get the message through to the Government Employee Pension Fund. You need to service your ex-employees and your current employees. You can't just allow these type of things to happen. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Okay. So sorry about that, Clement. Yeah. That's part of the difficulties that we face. Gabelo, you're in Uppington. I'm squeezing you in here, Gabelo, because we have to go to news shortly. So keep it as short as possible.
No, thanks, Oscar. I just want to ask Brian a very quick question. I'm working next year. I'll be 20 years on duty, one department. Now I want to ask you, will it be better if because I want to go into business, will it be better if I leave the work and I opt for business? And how will my pension work? Will it be given once, or will it be like every month? You can just advise me on that. I will.
Now, how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 46.
Okay, well, firstly, you can't retire at age 46, so you will have to withdraw from your pension fund. If you withdraw from your pension fund, the first 27,500 Rand is tax-free. Then any amount between that and 660,000 will be taxed at 18%, then 27%, then 36%. So you need to check up what your fund is worth, how much tax you will pay, and then do the calculations if that's worth moving into your own business. Look, anything entrepreneurial is always good, but you need to do the numbers. There's very large amount of tax you will pay on withdrawing. If you're over 55, you can then retire, but if you're under 55, you can't.
You cannot.
All right. All right, Kabelo.
Thanks. Can I just, the last one, I'm looking for the contact details of Brian.
Yeah.
No, I'm not giving. I'll be back on air. I will be back on air the next 2 weeks, but I'll only be back online. I'll be away. I'm going away at the end of next week. I'll be back online in January.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Kabelo. Sorry about that. So, Brian, we'll be with you again next week, Tuesday.
I'll be in, and I hope to be in the studio. I want to be able to give you a little hug for the year.
Get well soon, Brian. Can't wait to see you again. Okay. All right, that is Brian Hirsch. It is just after 11 o'clock. Time for the latest news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Cathy. Impala Platinum provides latest update after deadly accident, and NGO takes Parliament to court over sanction against ex-minister. This is SAFM News. A very good morning. I am Luyanda Maume. Impala Platinum Holdings says all the 86 employees who were involved in a mine accident at their operations in Rustenburg yesterday have been accounted for. 11 of them died, while 75 others sustained injuries. The latter have been transferred to hospitals around Rustenburg. The mining company says the rescue operation is complete and operations will be suspended at its 11 shaft in Rustenburg. CEO Nico Müller says they are in the process of informing and liaising with the affected families. The mine reports that investigations into the cause of the accidents have commenced. The case against a 21-year-old student, Bafana Mahungela, accused of the murder of a teacher, Kirsten Clates, has been postponed to next month. Mahungela made a brief appearance in the Alexandra Magistrate Court in Johannesburg this morning. He was arrested at a student residence of a Sandton tertiary institution on Sunday afternoon in connection with Clates' murder. Clates was an English teacher at the Delta Park High School in Gauteng. She was murdered last month whilst jogging in Parkmore in Johannesburg. The DA is today intensifying its campaign to unseat the ANC and its possible coalition partner, the EFF. It sponsored the multi-party charter comprising 8 opposition parties will hold a gathering of civil society organizations in Boksburg in the east of Johannesburg later this morning. The parties include the DA, IFP, ACDP. The purpose of the meeting is to solicit views from different community organizations on what to do to bring about a political change in South Africa. DA leader John Steenhuisen says like-minded parties have proved their detractors wrong by putting their differences aside and work together for the good of South Africa.
2024 is going to be South Africa's moonshot elect, where we achieve a giant leap forward by removing the ANC from power and replacing it with a new multi-party pact government composed of like-minded opposition parties. Just as with the original moonshot, when humans achieved the seemingly impossible by sending a man to the moon for the first time, there were a lot of naysayers. They said that opposition parties are too egotistical to get around the same table. They said that we would never be able to put aside petty politics in order to put South Africa first. The naysayers were wrong.
The non-governmental organization Unite Behind says it has taken Parliament to court over its recommendations against former Minister of Transport Dipuo Peters and her role in corruption at the passenger rail agency PRASA. Parliament's Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interest has recommended that Peters be suspended for 1 term after she was found guilty of breaching Parliament's ethics code. Unite Behind brought the complaint against Peters. Spokesperson for Unite Behind, Joseph Mason, says the recommendations made made by the committee are too lenient and therefore ought to be taken on judicial review.
Unite Behind welcomes the news that Parliament will vote on the suspension of Dipuo Peters this week, and we're confident that Parliament will vote in favour of her suspension. However, we feel that the sanction recommended by the Ethics Committee is much too light. The committee failed to recommend a financial penalty, a deduction in pay, an apology, or other greater sanctions that are within its power to recommend. The committee doesn't seem to be taking corruption seriously, given our other experiences with cases that we've lodged with the committee, and it keeps the procedure secret. And we have challenged this and other decisions in court. The committee also failed to investigate certain aspects of our complaint in this case and in the case of Joe Maswanganyi.
Acting Deputy Director for Medical Science at the Steve Biko Hospital's Reproductive Biology Laboratory, Gerard Boshoff, says the high cost of IVF treatments in the country include the expensive medication and labs to help with infertility. This SA-Belgium collaboration aims to extend availability of infertility care in underprivileged communities. Boshoff says there are facilities where IVF can be done at a cheaper price. Boshoff says the running cost of these systems are expensive.
So for the preparation of the ovaries, the controlled hyperstimulation is quite expensive for those medications. So determining on the level of hyperstimulation that you go for, use more or less medication. So if you go for more medication, obviously more expensive. And then on the lab side, it is expensive, the stuff that gets used, the disposables. Everything needs to be tested, be sure that it is IVF approved.
And finally, Uganda's finance ministry has announced plans to borrow $150 million loans from China's Exim Bank to develop the country's internet infrastructure. The move highlights Uganda's growing reliance on China for funding after the World Bank, one of its largest funders, suspended funding in August due to Uganda's adoption of a contentious anti-homosexuality law. Uganda is also in talks with Chinese export credit agency Sinosure for a loan to help fund a $5 billion pipeline through which Uganda plans to export crude oil to Tanzania. Recapping your top story, Impala Platinum Holdings says all the 86 employees who were involved in a mine accident at their operations in Rustenburg yesterday have been accounted for. Your headlines at 11:30 with Mpose Tole for SAFM News. My name is Luyanda Maume and I'm out.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.6 FM in Mangaung. SAFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture delivered by the former Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
SAFM, which many of you would know right now, we're launching the popular drama playwriting competition. The aim is to promote literacy and also ignite love for sharing South African stories.
Well, everything has gone up. The price of petrol.
Hey, Wena, are you saying that this phone uses petrol?
Our writers are being invited to explore the medium of sound and really go into the theatre of the mind.
People see the pictures in their own color, in their own images, in their own faces.
For a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes, visit safm.co.za. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, it's 9 after 11 o'clock. You're listening to The Talking Point. We're still leading the conversation here on SAFM. Our conversation for this hour will focus on the chaos at the country's ports before wrapping the show up at 11:30, looking at the hashtag It Takes a Village campaign against gender-based violence that's being convened by NACOSA. We'll find out more about that shortly. So, the South African Association of Freight Forwarders has been warning that the congestion at the country's ports is costing, wait for it, 7 billion rands a day. 7 billion rand a day is being lost to the South African economy because of this congestion. So let's try to understand then what some of the interventions in place are. Kobus van Veering is the General Secretary of the United National Transport Union, UNTU, and he's on the line. Kobus, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
Gavin Kelly is the CEO of the Road Freight Association. Gavin, good morning to you as well.
Good morning to you, Cathy. Good morning, Kobus. Good morning, all the listeners.
Kobus, let me begin with you just looking at this figure. 10 billion rand is a staggering amount of money to be lost each and every day that this crisis at the ports continues. Has this been getting worse, or is this figure better than what it was or has been over the last couple of weeks?
So, Cathy, the situation is getting worse by the day, and this is not something that has happened overnight. UNTU has had various engagements with the various public, the presidential state-owned enterprise committees. We've had engagements with Minister Pravin Gordhan. We've had engagements with even President Cyril Ramaphosa at one point in time about all the problems within Transnet. This is not something that has happened overnight. It has been coming for years and years and years as a result of the underinvestment by government and by Transnet in the infrastructure that is so crucial to our economy. We have warned time and time again that the chickens are going to come home to roost, and we are to be first. However, it seems to have fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah, that is absolutely concerning. Kobus van Veering there of UNTU, you heard him talk about how they've been raising this issue with various stakeholders for some time. Gavin, let me get your perspective. Again, we'll begin just more broadly on the scale of this crisis currently. That 7 billion rand figure, what kind of impact is that having on the businesses that are involved here?
Cathy, obviously I can't comment on the 7 billion. That doesn't come from us. That's coming from SAF. And 7 billion, one has to now sit down and try and unpack who's paying for that or who's losing out, who's losing money in terms of that. Because that is a huge figure, 7 billion a day. So if you look at it very, very quickly, first of all, it's going to be our manufacturers, our exporters, our businesses, large and small, the little businessmen, the big businessmen, who are producing or growing or making products that they sell to overseas markets. So they're losing out in terms of the revenue. The country's losing out in terms of exports and the duties or the taxes, that sort of generation of revenue. And then, of course, there are the imports that come in, which are part of some processes. We do a lot of trade, or we do a lot of movement of goods through our ports for countries to the north of us in Africa, or even into the west and the east, but definitely countries above us. So that means those sorts of charges, because revenue is generated in terms of moving goods, we're losing out on that. And then there are a whole lot of penalties that we are paying to shipping lines, to customers overseas, and those penalties are all in US dollars, and you know how strong the rand is in terms of that. So there's a lot of money being lost there. So it has an impact on everybody at the end of the day, because we are going to pay more for what we buy. We are going to pay more for what we import. And obviously, we're going to pay a lot of penalties. TPT, Transnet Port Terminals, pays penalties for ships that don't dock on the scheduled time. And those, again, are in US dollars. So that's a horrific figure if it is true. And it's all of us are paying that figure somehow, somewhere.
I think what is incredibly discouraging, I mean, just beyond the fact that the news that we're dealing with here is not good news at all, is the fact that it's not getting any better. Now, we, of course, are now entering December, which is the festive season. It'll be followed by January, which is back to school and a very, busy period, especially, in the retail space for all sorts of different reasons. Kobus, what then must we be anticipating, especially as customers? But I think if businesses are going to be suffering as much as they are, then what does that mean for potentially people's jobs going into a brand new year?
And that is one of Untu's major concerns as well. If you look at the situation. Transnet and government could have prevented this if they did the necessary investment in time to ensure that the infrastructure is up to standard, that we can handle the freight that comes in via our ports. But now, yet, all of a sudden, now that there's more than 40 ships lying outside of Durban Harbour trying to berth, and TPT is paying penalties for all of those ships that's not berthing at the right time. Now, all of a sudden, government can find the money to procure the equipment that we need, like the RTGs and the ship-to-shore cranes. However, this is going to take 12 to 18 months before it is even close to the South African harvest. So, for the next 12 to 18 months, we don't foresee an immediate improvement. And naturally, December is peak season. Everybody is going on holiday. It's Christmas. A lot of goods are being imported. It is going to have a tremendous impact on the economy. It's going to have a tremendous impact on the availability of certain things that's imported. And as soon as you start taking the revenue away from businesses that make a living from importing goods and selling goods, naturally, if they are not making money, job losses is the next thing that is going to happen. So the impact on the economy, the impact on our currently excessively high unemployment rate is going to be severe. The economy is going to be worse. It's going to have an impact on the repo rate, inflation, and of course, job losses is a definite possibility unless something happens that can turn this situation around. And we don't see that happening in the next couple of months.
Gavin, we have already experienced job losses in the freight sector this year, particularly when it comes to the trucking industry. Are you expecting that things will worsen?
Well, Cathy,
sorry, Gavin, you can go for it.
I think Kobus and I have probably got very much the same opinion here, Cathy. As soon as businesses struggle and they cannot generate revenue, unless they've got huge amounts of cash somewhere that they can access to carry them through a difficult period, and COVID was a very good example of that, then those businesses are going to be under financial duress and they're going to close. And
hello, Gavin. All right, we seem to have lost Gavin Kelly there. Yeah, there certainly is an issue with our phone lines, but I think it might be as a result of the connection and associated load shedding out there. So, Kobus, you talk about 12 to 18 months to actually have the right equipment at the ports. But what then happens in the meantime? What is being done to deal with the backlog and to clear it in the interim?
I think I want to make it clear that it's going to take 12 to 18 months for some of the equipment to arrive. However, that doesn't mean that all the equipment that is needed in the ports and on the TFR side, the Transnet Freight Rail side, is going to be available in 12 to 18 months. Some of it will, once you place an order, it takes 12 to 18 months. And naturally, they're not going to order everything now that they need to actually fix all the ports. So this is a long-term thing. We're talking about probably a 5 to 10 year period before all the old aged equipment is replaced. The equipment is probably repaired, and some of these equipment you can't even find spares anymore. That's how old it is, especially on the Transnet Freight Rails as well. So in the meantime, what Transnet has done is they have embarked on a turnaround strategy. We have started engaging on this turnaround strategy as late as yesterday was our first meeting to actually interrogate this turnaround strategy. But as usual, when you look at the strategy, a lot of the detail in this strategy on the execution side is missing. So a broad statement like we need to improve this from this percent, let's say from 18 moves ship-to-shore cranes, we need to move the containers from 18 moves to 25 moves. But they don't say how they're going to do that. So that detail is not there. It's, we know we must improve it, and if we improve it from 18 to 25, we will have this kind of benefit. But where's the plan on how you're going to do that? That's not there. You can't do it with the current equipment because the equipment is not available, it's breaking down the whole time. So, and the spares are not available. So how are you going to do it? Nobody can tell us how they're going to achieve what they need to achieve. And that is the frustrating part. So this is not going to be a quick fix. And there's been numbers thrown around that says between 17 to 15 weeks, the backlog should be cleared. It is going to take longer than that because the equipment is not available and it's not maintained. It is broken down.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, to think about the wholesale impact just on the value chain for so many businesses. Now, Gobus, just lastly, perhaps with you, are there interventions that businesses are taking currently to try and mitigate the impact of these delays? I mean, what is it that people can do so that they don't find themselves in a position where they're having to pay additional money for storage at the ports because their goods are not moving as quickly as they had anticipated?
If the businesses, all the businesses throughout South Africa that is involved in importing and exporting goods, I'm sure has placed a lot of pressure on Transnet and government to try and fix this. And I'm sure that they are trying to put measures in place to mitigate their losses. Losses that they're going to suffer. Everybody's going to suffer losses because if your stuff is not delivered on time, and if you're a construction company building cranes or whatever, your stuff is not delivered on time, it cannot be exported out of the ports on time. Naturally, your projects cannot be executed, it's delayed, that has got a direct impact on your revenue. And the sad thing about this is that when we are always faced in business, especially in the private sector, when you are faced with financial difficulties, the very first and foremost element of your business that you look at and that you rationalize as soon as possible is the labor workforce, because that is a big component of your expenses. If you don't have work because you don't have the equipment that you need, which was supposed to come into the ports, it's not delivered, you have to reduce your cost, your overhead, your fixed costs. So one of those ways is to rationalize your workforce, and that will lead to retrenchment. So I'm sure private business throughout the country is already considering how we're going to mitigate these losses, and unfortunately, rationalization is one of the things that is going to happen, and that is just going to contribute to our unemployment rate. everybody in South Africa is going to get poorer because it's going to place a bigger strain on government, social grants, unemployment insurance, which we know also doesn't have money, just like the RAF. So it is massive, and the most affected people in the end is the ordinary South Africans that live from hand to mouth, that works every day to make a living.
All right. That is the voice there of Kobus van Viering, who is the General Secretary of the United National Transport Union. Gavin, let me bring you back in here. Glad to have you back on the line. But from your perspective, what is the industry doing, again, to mitigate against some of the losses in income because goods are stuck at the ports?
Oh, Cathy, that's a very difficult question to answer. Sorry for the cough there. Something went down the wrong way. So that's a very difficult question to answer, because what can we do? Our trucks are standing. We can't get in or out of the ports, and in many cases, the cargo is still on the truck, from whichever customer it might have come from. So you can't drop it off, where you're standing and go off and go do something somewhere else and try and generate revenue. So there's the first problem. The second problem is some of those cargoes might be perishable cargoes, and they're only so long that you can keep them in the containers, if it's in containers. If it's outside in controlled sort of pallets, that becomes even more of a problem, and the cargo could perish, could be lost. So that's very, very difficult. To try and tell truckers to keep their trucks in their depots while your truck is standing and not moving, you lose money. So you have to keep those assets sweating, as they say, or you have to keep them moving. So from our point of view, and if the listeners heard what Kobus said, this problem hasn't just arisen, last week or the week before. This has been a long time coming, and many of the players in the logistics supply chain, the trucking companies, the private rail operators, the warehouses, the importers, the mines, the farms, have all been saying to Transnet port terminals, to the government at various stages, listen, we're heading for a crisis, we need to fix this. And that's actually the greatest gripe we have right now, is it's being made as if this happened only last week, but it's been around for a long time. So we have transporters who, if they cannot do what they need to do and they face these penalties I spoke about earlier on, have no other option either than to cut costs, try and stay out of that deep hole, and probably close.
Yeah, that of course is really the worst case scenario. Yeah. Gavin, when it comes to the trucks that are currently, in those long queues, speak to me about the costs of having those trucks standing there, because I would imagine that when it comes to perishable goods, do you think is there any order of priority for what is being processed at the ports right now?
Well, there is a priority in the normal course of events before you get to a crisis. And the priority is done by where you store the containers in a port, for example. So the perishable goods will go to a terminal or an area in a port that allows them to be linked to electricity. And I'm not going to talk about load shedding, but allows them to be linked to electricity, so that should they stand on the quayside for a day or two or a week or whatever the case may be, that they still are linked to electricity. And obviously, you then load or offload, and I use the term obviously, sorry Cathy, but you obviously offload the containers as the ships arrive. And this is where it's going horribly wrong. So you would put containers into a port, and let's say you've got a whole lot of containers that have fruit, vegetables, or meat, or whatever the case may be, or even flowers, and they would be placed in a line in the port, or in a position in a port that is easy to get them from where they are to the quayside where the ship would be. And you would stack these containers or place these containers in the port, knowing that, on December the 4th, the ship's going to come in, the SS whatever will come in, and we need to get those containers onto that ship and out. So the bulk dry type of goods are further back, for want of a physical definition, are further back and aren't under immediate pressure. When you start to have a backlog, the areas where you where you place these containers and where you keep them gets choked up. So obviously you now have a problem. So you do one of 2 or 3 things. One thing is you say to the exporter, sorry, I can't take any more of your containers with the fruit. The mere fact that it's being harvested or has to be harvested on the farm is neither here nor there. They just say, sorry, we can't move the fruit. So the fruit or the perishable goods stay at the farm or inland in the country. The second thing is you look for alternative areas to store the goods and try and get them to the quays or to the ships when the ships come. What the third option is, and this is one of the greatest dangers, is that the producers say, well, I'm sick and tired of struggling with the Port of Durban or the Port of Cape Town. I'm now going to move it through Walvis Bay or Beira or Maputo or Lobito. And that is the long-term danger, is that if exporters find other ports, not our own ports, being more efficient, it might take a couple of days longer to get it there. It might cost a little bit more in terms of transport. But if they're getting their goods exported, they're going to move those goods to a different port. Long story. Sorry, Cathy.
All right. Well, a necessary story nonetheless. Kevin Kelly, let me thank you for your time and really for your contributions to this conversation. He's the CEO of the Road Freight Association. And you heard earlier from Untu's Kobus van Veering. Yeah, it is incredibly difficult at the ports right now. And, it's good to hear sort of what the impact of it is, but it really is bad news overall, regardless of which way you try to slice it. All right, it's just after 11:30, time for your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Cathy. Good morning. For SFM News, I'm Mposa Tole. In your headlines, 4 people have died and 3 seriously injured after the car they were travelling in overturned near Steinberg towards Molteno in the Eastern Cape. Provincial spokesperson for Transport, Unati Bingose, says the driver lost control of the vehicle after failing to negotiate a sharp curve. In other news, in its 2023 midterm budget policy statement, the Gauteng provincial government has revised its budget to 4.6 billion rand to reach a total of 163 billion rand. That's in the 2023-24 financial year. And Impala Platinum Holding says all the 86 employees involved in a mine accident at their operations in Rustenburg yesterday have been accounted for. 11 of them died, while 75 others sustained injuries. I'll have these and other stories at the top of the hour.
Buying a new TV? You'll need a paid-up TV license. Need to check your balance? No sweat at all. You just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 for fast, effective balance inquiries. Secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Manene namanenekazi.
Dove is not just gentle and moisturizing.
It took great care of the nation
During the Rugby World Cup France 2023. Dove rocks just like the box.
Danko Unilever for your remarkable contribution to the momentous journey of global heroes.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Don't miss out on the SAFM Playwriting Competition. To enter, visit safm.co.za. From the menu icon, select Competitions. Click on the SAFM Drama Playwriting Competition. Read the T's and C's of the competition. Check out the competition's Q&A. Fill in the entry form by clicking the link provided. Email your script to drama@safm.co.za. For further information, email drama@safm.co.za. Entries close on the 22nd of January 2024. SAFM, leading the conversation. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Cathy and the SAFM listeners. Cathy, in regards to what's happening at the port, my question is, who let things spiral out of control? Surely there's management, surely there's supervisors, surely there's technicians. who actually let things go out of control? Because surely if something has broken down, there's a process. It has to be repaired. So clearly what was happening here, somebody let things spiral out of control. How are they working there at the port? Who's managing? Whose sole responsibility is it at the port to ensure the port is running smoothly? No, Cathy, this is unacceptable.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and SAFM listeners. One other thing, Sis Cathy, according to this topic of Transnet, is the workers there, those people who are moving those machines, who are loading trucks there. They are very lazy, those people. They don't want to work. They don't want to work at that Durban port and Cape Town port especially. Those two ports, those people who are operating those big machines, who are loading these trucks there, they can sit there, make the congestion there in the port deliberately also. So please, these guys, they must talk to the managers of the port, because there is nowhere to report those people there. I thank you. I am Talente, one of truck drivers who load there.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
In our communities, we have the power to end gender-based violence. Let's focus on what we can do to stop it. Be informed and take action. Seek healthcare or report an incident. Call the Gender-Based Violence Command Center on 0800 428428 for support in your area. It takes a village to end gender-based violence, and we all play a role. What's your role? Now, this message has been brought to you by Nakosa, and we end off the show by speaking to Nakosa about their hashtag It Takes a Village campaign. Joining us on the line is Dr. Ntlutleng Mabena, who is the technical specialist at Nakosa. Dr. Mabena, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning on The Talking Point.
Good morning, Cathy, and thank you for having me on your show.
Let's talk about the campaign that you're currently running, hashtag It Takes a Village. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Thank you, Cathy, for the introduction. I think our campaign as Nakosa being a network organization that works with a lot of community-based organizations and other NGOs in the space of health and social justice, including in GBV. The aim of this campaign really is to encourage active citizenry, engage communities to start having conversations about gender-based violence, about harmful cultural norms, about, everything that are contributing factors to gender inequality and therefore also fuel gender-based violence and experiences of violence. To get communities to also talk about consequences of gender-based violence, be it health consequences, socio-economic consequences, so that communities can start being aware of the impact of this epidemic that we are dealing with, both at an individual level but also at a community level. And we also really want to educate communities, individuals and communities a lot. We've got a lot of nice laws in South Africa. We know that our president recently amended certain acts, your Sexual Offences Act, the Domestic Violence Act. It's very nice in terms of policy and legislation that we have, but unfortunately an ordinary citizen on the ground doesn't really even know about these laws or what they mean, what sexual offences is, what rape is, when do you need to report these cases. We're seeing a lot of children who are falling pregnant, but yet we are not seeing any communities mobilizing to get these cases reported and things. So we really want to also make sure that communities are properly educated, particularly when it comes to legal literacy on issues relating to gender-based violence, but also, to be educated on information of where, if somebody has experienced violence, what are their options? Where can they go for help, be it health care, be it legal support, be it shelters, whatever it is that people may need. where are those services available at community level. And then we're also aiming that through this campaign, we can actually start mobilizing communities to take ownership and in prevention programs, GBV prevention programs that are happening in the communities, but also GBV response programs that are happening in the communities. We need communities to be the ones to stand up to say, but in community X, we don't have a Tutuzela care center, or our facilities are not offering us post-violence care. What can we do? Who can we mobilize for us to be able to start getting those services? Or the communities to say the police station there, they make survivors wait long, or they don't open cases. The community to mobilize to be able to intervene and start getting the right things happening in their own community.
So, Dr. Mabena, when you speak with the NGOs that fall under your collective as NACOSA, what is hindering communities from having these conversations? What is really making it difficult to get to the heart of some of these issues?
So there are various factors, right, Cathy, which can be from accessibility issues, access to information, as I'm saying, legal literacy and education, but also access to services. People don't even know what services are available and where to access them. And in certain areas where you do even have the facilities or resources, you don't have the appropriately equipped or skilled providers to offer that care, so who also act as a barrier to accessing those kind of services. But I think what crucial factor that we mustn't leave out is the fact that we as society have been socialized in a very patriarchal way. Patriarchy really penetrates in everything that we're doing. We're seeing patriarchy come up as a barrier a lot. If somebody reports, a child or somebody reports that they have been sexually violated or something by an uncle, a brother at the homes, we find that the very initial first people who block access to services are actually the family members. Because what do we say to each other? We say, no, this is a family issue. We will negotiate as a family. We'll do this. And because we don't want to be stigmatized by communities, we don't want to be seen as a family that has a rapist in it. So the patriarchal values, from our traditional systems, from our religious systems, are all entrenched in us in a way that we should not be dealing with certain things head on. And I think really one of the important work that we need to do as communities, as individuals, is to start confronting patriarchy and the toxic nature of masculinity. Patriarchy in itself is not toxic, but there are traits in patriarchy which then act as a barrier to gender equality, but also access to services.
One of the things I'm thinking about, Dr. Mabena, as you're speaking, is the extent to which, we as a society have shared values where there are basic things that happen in our society that outrage all of us or that make all of us angry. Because when you talk about the difficulties in families for why it's people are unable to have conversations around violence, even if it's happening in their spaces, is because there's the stigma, there's not wanting to be spoken about, etc. But does that mean that we don't have shared values as a country and as communities, that the things that outrage those on the outside do not necessarily outrage us if it affects the people that we hold near and dear?
So I think we do have shared values, Cathy. What is happening is that we have forgotten about our shared values. We speak a lot about Ubuntu. And this whole campaign, it takes a village to end GBV, to raise a child, are all principles that are fundamentally based in the Ubuntu value systems. That is a shared value system amongst us, but we have forgotten it. We've become so individualistic. We don't care about what's happening to the next person, or I don't want what's happening to the next person affect me. We've really forgotten how to practice that particular shared value together. And through this campaign, we're hoping that we can remind each other that I am a human being, because you are also a human being. If you cry about something, it's my responsibility to stand up and support you, in whatever way that you need support. I think that's one way we can start reminding each other of the shared value that we do have, but we've just forgotten.
Let's talk a little bit about the campaign. How are you going to be running it over the 16-day period?
So we have a few social media platforms that we are sharing stories of different community people, from healthcare providers to police to family members to survivors to partners, anybody who can be around a survivor. We are going to be having people tell different stories, share information from their own lived experience, so that everybody can identify and see themselves in the real lives of the normal people who would be talking on the campaign. I think the campaign is really to make sure that everybody positions and sees themselves in the fight against GBV, that we are all in it together. And we can only be in it together if we know what our role is, if we know our responsibility, and if we can relate to other people's roles and responsibilities as well.
All right. Dr. Ntlutleng Mabena is a technical specialist at NACOSA. In our communities, we have the power to end gender-based violence. Let's focus on what we can do to stop it. So be informed and take action. Seek healthcare or report an incident. Call the Gender-Based Violence Command Center on 0800 428428 for support in your area. It takes a village to end gender-based violence, and we all play a role. What's your role? This message has been brought to you by NACOSA. And on that note, it brings us to the end of the talking point for today. We're back with you again bright and early tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Coming up next is the book reading.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Thohoyandou.
The book reading. Please note, the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of Simply Larry, read by Simpiwe Nkosi, written by Elias Masilela.
Paul would subsequently compliment this picture of Father Fleming when he published his biography in a local magazine on personalities of Drogda, the Irish Independent, of 14 January 2009, where he says with deep fondness, he began his schooling at the age of 3 in St. Mary's BNS Old Hill, Drogda, in 1927, and finished his education with a BA London in English, Latin, and History. In developing his own teaching skills and methods, he would often look back to his early days in the Old Hill School, which were very happy years for him. He was ordained a Salesian priest on July 8, 1956, in Melchett Court, England, and shortly afterwards set sail to Swaziland. Father Pat had one single core principle that fired his life: education. He believed that the fundamental solution to all the problems of human development is education. He set about creating this in the very basic steps of the primary school in a country where education was non-existent. Combining both vocations, teacher and evangelizer, putting in a full day of work and prayer. In 1961, Father Pat returned to Manzini as rector of the community. He went out of his way to obtain financial help from various sources, local and overseas, and along with the community, worked hard at building a library, school chapel, residential quarter, and an administration office. At a time when creativity and originality would not have been encouraged by the church, Father Pat was often off the Salesian map, quietly doing things his way. Drogda has traditionally had very strong connections with the Salesians in Manzini. During the early 60s, South Africa was experiencing turbulent times. So many of the boarding students came from there to Manzini to escape the apartheid regime. Today, many of these students are prominent people in the new government of South Africa. Schooling is but one aspect of the work of the Salesian community in Manzini. They run 6 residential homes and an orphanage for street children, a bridging school for those who have never been to school or have dropped out of employment is high. Skills such as carpentry, motor mechanics, electronics, baking, hairdressing, and screen printing are taught. The Bosco Study Center offers computer courses, and they produce a number of fair trade products through the Eswatini factory, supporting over 30 women and families. They also provide the largest venue in Manzini for indoor games such as basketball and soccer.